This video is brought to you by my new book, The Boy Without Magic, available in both ebook and paperback. Links in the description. And at last, it is here. After 4 years of waiting, id Software's follow-up to their revival of Doom, Doom Eternal. Like so many, I was curious to see how they could follow up such an incredible experience and avoid just repeating what the previous game did. What we get not only builds on the 2016 game, but also implements a slew of new ideas that not only makes it feel like its own beast, but at times, like too much of a good thing. Picking up sometime after 2016's cliffhanger, Hell has invaded Earth, and all hope is lost, with the Doomslayer and his space fortress getting ready to strike at the heart of the invasion and not only rip and tear the demons of Hell, but the forces of Heaven and their collaborators. Oddly enough, Doom Eternal has a fair bit in common with Doom 3 in that there's a very big emphasis on the story, with rich world building and traditional cinematics, and it's well told, and I dare say, compelling stuff. It goes deep into the Slayer's past and the wider multiverse that Doom exists in. We find out what he was up to after the events of 64, and how he got the Slayer title, and it had me hooked alongside the shooting. There is a large time gap between Eternal and the 2016 game with no explanation of what went on, such as how the Slayer escaped Hayden's stasis, or how did he get his fortress in the first case. No clue. Never brought up, but DLC is planned for the future, so imagine they'll fill in these plot holes when they come out, that is assuming that they decide to address them in the first place. The presence of more traditional storytelling admittedly can be off-putting, since it's not something you tend to expect from a Doom game, but it does blend in well with the core gameplay, and the cinematics never outstay their welcome. Hell, in one we get to hear the Slayer speak, back when he was still the Doom guy, and it's one of the best character moments I've seen in any recent game. There's so much great stuff in the story alone, it left me wanting to see spin-offs based on the lore, like a successor to Hexen, focusing on the Sentinels of Argentanur before the Makers came. That would be so friggin' sweet. At the core, the gameplay is just as great as it was in the previous game, but a great deal of work has been done to evolve it, turning it into something substantially more intense and intricate. The shooting still feels and sounds amazing. For the most part, we get the same arsenal from the prior game, but with some new toys to play with and substantially less ammo. The latter makes it impossible for the player to rely on one gun or strategy for long periods of time, at least until you get some ammo upgrades. While some of the new additions include things like an ice grenade, a grappling hook, allowing you to stun quicker enemies or close the distance between you and them, and that's without bringing up how melee has been changed. We still have the glory kills, which are more brutal than ever, while the chainsaw is no longer taking up a weapon slot, but rather functions as a quick attack for ammo in need. While a new addition is the Crucible, a one-hit kill sword that can really help you out in a tight spot. The previous enemy roster has been carried over with some returning and new faces. The Arachnotron, Pain Elementals, and Archvile make their comeback, while the new faces include the likes of a cyborg with a deployable shield and a flying gargoyle that spits acid. A big shakeup is the inclusion of weak points. By targeting certain parts of enemy bodies, you disable their access to certain attacks, giving you less to worry about so you can deal with the more annoying fodder coming at you. Some enemies are more vulnerable to one weapon over others. The plasma gun can cause shields to explode, while explosives can stun the cacodemons. Everything comes together into one brutal ballet of bullets and rage, so surviving every enemy encounter is challenging and feels like an accomplishment when you pull through it. A substantial shake-up has also been added to the level design. There's a much bigger emphasis on platforming this time, with scalable walls and monkey bars to swing from. This adds even more strategic options for the player while in combat, and primarily serve a different purpose: exploration. The levels are littered with numerous secrets and collectibles to find off the beaten path, and the platforming challenges to get these keep things fun when the game goes quiet. Swinging from place to place, between walls, and rationing your dash and double jump, it never gets old. And let me tell tell you, there is a lot to find. From vinyl bobbleheads, to songs to listen to, and cheats to use when you replay levels. All of these additions and changes are great, but alongside the gameplay changes though, they can make the game feel bloated, as if id was just throwing ideas against the wall, and yet miraculously, everything managed to stick, and it's all introduced at a breakneck pace, which can be overwhelming, especially when, for instance, you encounter a certain environmental change that can really hamper a particular strategy, but it's only introduced for a specific set of levels and never comes back. Also, I won't lie, when I first started playing, I lost track of what I could do, and it took me a while to not only get used to it, but just to remember how certain things controlled. There are other additions, including changes to character progression, but if I went in depth with every single one, this review would be much longer than it needs to be, and I'd be wasting both your and my time explaining. A neat new addition, however, is the inclusion of the Doomslayer's fortress, the Fortress of Doom. This is essentially his spaceship that also doubles as an in-game hub. It's here that you can replay levels, unlock skins, practice combat with enemies, and go over your unlocks and collectibles. Now this place, it's awesome. It's metal as fuck and just brims with character, with its dark fantasy aesthetic and layered layout. Exploring it, it just never gets old, and it even plays into the larger ethos of the Slayer, giving us a glimpse into his personal interests and personality on the same level as the cinematics. It's hands down one of the best hubs I've seen since Vermintide 2's Keep. Now, a particular nitpick is something a lot of people have been raging about: the Marauders. These guys are mini-bosses where you basically have to go up against a computer version of yourself, and they're intended to be an intense test of skill, since they counter almost any attack at any time, and you really have to hone your timing to bring these guys down. For me, I do like this idea, but my issue is tied to how their attack patterns change based on your distance. Basically, you have to maintain a sweet spot at mid-distance so they don't use their more devastating attacks and exploit their openings effectively. Problem is that it can be infuriating getting it right, and more likely you're in range for them to summon their minion, which will throw you off even more. Because of this, I nearly rage quit multiple times while fighting one of them, but at least each encounter with them is memorable, and it is satisfying to put one of these bastards down. So it's really a matter of perseverance, and something that you just need to learn to love like a die-hard masochist. Got him! Shit, motherfucker! All in all, Doom Eternal is one of the best games to come out in 2020 so far, and a more than worthy follow-up to the 2016 game. It can be daunting to wrap your head around, especially if you hadn't played the previous game, but once you do, it's fun from beginning to end. So if you've been on the fence about getting it, don't be. Pick it up and get ready to rip and tear like it's 1993 all over again.
You were nothing but a usurper, a false idol. My eyes have been opened.
Hey, thanks for checking out this review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you really liked it, then by all means, feel free to hit the subscribe button. And if you want some regular updates about progress on videos or other projects I'm working on, then feel free to check out my Minds blog or my Gab account, links in the description. Now, for the next game review, I'm not entirely certain what I'm going to be reviewing next, but I might take a look at the new XCOM Chimera Squad. As for movie reviews, as of right now, I don't have anything planned because, well, nothing's really coming out. So I might do a retro review in the near future, just have to wait and see. I know it's not much, but I got all that and more coming up, so please, like usual, stick around.